Hello, and welcome to our Nevada Extreme Weather virtual press conference featuring Nevada Assemblywoman Rochelle Nguyen of District 10, Reno City Council member Devin Reese, and Assistant Director Jody Bechtel of the Clark County Department of Environment and Sustainability, along with climate justice and public health experts who have come together to speak in support of significant investment in clean energy to address Nevada's climate crisis. I want to thank the Nevada Conservation League for sponsoring today's event. For our agenda, we will have 2 to 3 minutes of formal remarks from each of our speakers, who will be visible and audible via their video. At the end of the formal remarks, we will have a brief session for questions related to today's event, and members of the media will be able to raise their hand or use the chat function to indicate they have a question. I would like to now introduce Angeline Tabalba, the Communications Director for the Nevada Conservation League. Angeline, the microphone is yours.
Thanks so much, Ashley, and good morning, everyone. I'm Angeline Tabalba, the Communications Manager at the Nevada Conservation League. Now, here at the Nevada Conservation League, we envision a future where all of our communities can thrive because we have access to a healthy climate future. So I'm glad today you all could join us this morning with some elected officials, climate activists, and other health advocates to talk just about another crisis threatening our livelihoods and devastating our communities: climate change. Now, climate change is inducing extreme weather events across the country, and Nevada is on the front lines. These record-breaking temperatures, out-of-control wildfires, historic droughts. Now, if we fail to act boldly and quickly, we can just expect these things to get worse. Now, this week, and continuing in today, we are seeing the Calder Fire race toward Lake Tahoe, now prompting the evacuation of nearly 50,000 residents from their own homes. Last week, our federal government declared a water shortage at Lake Mead, one of our nation's largest reservoirs, for the first time ever. And according to statesAtRisk.org, Reno, Nevada is the fastest warming city in the entire country, and these temperatures are expected to rise over the next decade. So climate change is making extreme weather events more frequent, more severe, and Nevadans are paying the price. These disastrous events are ringing alarm bells, and they're calling on us to take bold action and immediate action on clean energy, climate, jobs, and justice. Now, there's an urgent need for Congress to pass a budget that makes bold investments in those places. Now, we need a clean energy future that creates millions of family-supporting clean energy jobs, that builds resilient communities, and reduces pollution that is already fueling these climate disasters to begin with and threatening public health. So now is our moment to go big, to be bold, and to put people at work. So we're asking U.S. Senators Catherine Cortez Masto, Jackie Rosen, along with Congressman Stephen Horsford, to continue leading and expanding clean energy. So we're also grateful to Congressman Stephen Horsford for his leadership in this space and his recent commitment to supporting the climate priorities in the Build Back Better budget. So this means we need to support a budget that makes investments to cut pollution, to create jobs, address environmental injustice, and tackle the climate crisis. Right now, I'm happy to introduce Assemblywoman Rochelle Nguyen of Nevada's District 10.
Hi there. Good morning or good afternoon. I am Assemblywoman Rochelle Nguyen. I represent Assembly District 10 in the Nevada State Legislature. I'm proud to be a member of one of the most diverse legislatures in the nation, and I know that the diversity of representation creates better policy. We've seen time and time again, communities of color are hit first by the ongoing and worsening climate crisis. Whether that's experiencing increased rates of health issues due to extreme weather, wildfires, pollution, and smog, or bearing a larger financial burden in response to extreme weather events, or being forced to live in neighborhoods that are disproportionately affected by urban heat islands, our state's marginalized communities are too often left behind. I've seen this firsthand. I grew up in the Pacific Northwest, and a lot of times people don't think of extreme heat, but obviously extreme weather and extreme climate change, they are seeing it firsthand up there as their temperatures reached 116 degrees this year. I remember I am the child of a daughter of a refugee and working class parents, and I watched my parents work multiple jobs just to provide for my sister and I. Growing up in our house, we had one of those single window air conditioning units, and it struggled to keep even the one room cool during the summer months. And I remember on those really hot nights, my entire family would cram into that room and sleep there and try to find relief from the heat. So unfortunately, I do know that my experience is not unique. Something that many families across the nation and throughout Nevada have experienced firsthand. It's time to pass that Build Back Better budget to make the much needed bold investments in our clean energy economy, clean energy infrastructure, and to build a more resilient energy grid, address these environmental injustices, and reduce pollution that is driving these intense and dangerous extreme weather events. Nevadans and families like mine are asking for this bold action. The Build Back Better budget will help our nation and help our state build a smarter and more equitable infrastructure. I hope that you will join and my family for our congressional representatives to support the Build Back Better budget. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Assemblywoman Nguyen and Councilmember Reese.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, friends. Let's see what we can accomplish here. Thank you so much for participating today with all of the groups and also our media partners. My name is Devin Reese. I'm the Reno City Council member at large, and I apologize. We were having some tech difficulties there, and my remarks are not quite as polished as my colleague, Assembly Member Nguyen. The week's been a challenging one. I'll just be honest with you. Here in the Truckee Meadows up north in Reno, Nevada, we've had, I think now, 59 days of compromised air quality. That air quality has been driven largely by two fires that are larger than the state of Rhode Island. And those fires are at minimal containment today. And so each day as a council member, I know the effects of climate change are impacting our community. The Western United States is literally today on fire, and I can't see the mountains that are the home to so many of us here in Northern Nevada. So I'm a little emotional, and it breaks my heart to say it, but we know that climate change is human caused and that it will have to be human solved. Technology is not going to dig us out of the hole we're in, but it's going to be all of us and groups like the Nevada Conservation League who are leading the effort, and Congress with their Build Back Better budget that are going to be the way forward. I think a lot about my own children's future. I'm the father of three, and these are young people who are very critical about, the state of the planet that we as parents have left them in, and it has been a long time coming. And in my role as a city council member, we think about things like water shortages. We think about how do we support our firefighters in wildlife fire situations. We think about how does growth develop the trajectory for a community where cars are one of the largest impacts to carbon footprint and carbon causing emissions. These are the things that happen on the front lines. And I think the resiliency that has historically been built into the system has all but gone. And so now we have to ask ourselves as communities, how do we make sure that communities of color, our most marginalized communities are not being left further and further behind because of the effects of climate change. And I think that the way we do that is by having smart legislatures in our legislature in Carson City. It's by having smart elected officials in Washington, like the members that you've represented here today. And we make sure that they understand that where we have been is unacceptable. Where we are today is heartbreaking. And the only thing we can do is chart a bold future. And that bold future will be built with the help of folks who are on this call and with all of us. So thank you very much for allowing me to participate. And we've got a lot of work to do.
Thank you, Council Member. Next is Jody Bechtel with the Clark County Department of Environment and Sustainability. Jody?
Hi, thank you, Ashley, and good morning, everyone. I appreciate the opportunity to join this discussion today because we are seeing the impact climate change can have on Clark County's air quality. As Clark County's Air Pollution Control Agency, the Department of Environment and Sustainability implements strategies with our business community to control pollution levels by issuing permits that hold them to strict control measures within the Environmental Protection Agency standards. However, despite these efforts, we can still experience poor air quality through circumstances outside of our authority, like vehicle emission standards, and circumstances beyond our control, like drought and wildfires. Rising temperatures have led not only Reno, but Las Vegas to be called one of the fastest warming cities in the US, according to Climate Central. In fact, 3 of our 5 hottest years occurred from 2016 to 2018. So extreme weather events are becoming our new normal and have contributed to increases in ozone and particulate pollution in southern Nevada. Wildfire smoke influences ozone formation and particulates in the air, and we've seen a direct correlation with poor air quality days, especially in 4 of the past 5 years, as the wildfires in the West have gotten worse. Last month alone, due largely to wildfire smoke, we experienced one of our worst Augusts on record for ozone exceedances of the Environmental Protection Agency's health-based standards. Right now, we're nowhere near what Reno is experiencing, and our hearts do go out to that community. In an effort to address climate change impacts in Clark County, we launched All in Clark County, which is an initiative to create a sustainable community for current and future generations in Southern Nevada, tackling issues such as clean energy infrastructure, urban heat island effects, and environmental equity. But working at the local level alone only addresses one portion of a much larger challenge. We need more investment in climate change solutions at the federal level. We need bold action from Congress. Long-term planning and investment at the federal level must become the new normal. Thank you. And now I will pass it to Reverend Leonard Jackson, Executive Director of the Faith Organizing Alliance.
Thank you. And thank you, Ashley, for bringing us together. No explanation is needed because times and our lives and our welfare is on the edge of a cliff. And it's up to us to come together to pull ourselves back from the edge. So my name is Reverend Leonard Jackson. I'm the Executive Director for the Faith Organizing Alliance here in Las Vegas. We came into being here in the business here in this state back in 2014. And why? Because we realized that our people, especially people of color, were hurting 24/7. It was nice to come into our community, to register people to vote, to find housing, to find food, etc. But when we look around, we realize that we have a water shortage, fires out of control, storms are raging, the heat is unbearable, then we know that we need help in our community. And we're not going to say that help is on the way, because help is here. I want to personally thank our elected officials, especially Congressman Stephen Horsford, who has dedicated his ability to help us with our energy solutions here within our community. And I say thank you to our governor, because he opened the door for us. He opened the door that Nevada can be #1 in the energy field, but it takes us coming together in unity to make a positive change. We realize that history has a way of telling the story, of telling the truth, because we realize that our communities of color and low wealth communities are the first ones that are hit with devastation, whether it be fires, homelessness, unemployment, our health is poor. We can go down the list that we're there. But we know one thing for sure, that the governor signed the right energy bills this time around to make a difference and put this state on the map and put them in place of #1. And we're going to move up just a little bit higher, because we're coming together. When we look at Build Back, a better budget here in this state, that we're going to make that difference here in this state, but we're going to stand tall and stand for something. For we do not want our children to look back at us and say, there stood some fools, but we realize that we are a community that will stand together, that will make a difference, will stand up, speak up, and move us forward. And that's why we are here today. Understand this. Faith Organizing Alliance and how we really truly got involved here, because we wanted to make sure that we have the right bills in place, okay, to make a difference. And we realized that, yes, the money is there, the ability is there, but it's up to us, again, to come together, which we are doing. So this way, when our children look back, they'll say, our parents and our foreparents stood for something, didn't fall for this any old thing. I'm gonna stop right there while I'm ahead, because we're going to make sure that the bills and energy bills, especially that were passed, and it says that 40% of that money will go to the underserved, underprivileged communities. Well, as long as Faith Organizing Alliance is here in this community, we're going to make sure that the so-called underserved, underprivileged community will benefit from that. 40% of the funding will come directly to our community, train our people for the jobs that are out there, and uplift our community. Let the church say amen.
Thank you so much, Reverend. Your message about unity and collaboration as we tackle the climate crisis could not have been stated any better. And I'm glad you took us all to church on this message. I want to say thank you so much to Assemblywoman Nguyen, Councilmember Reese, Jody Betchel, and Reverend Jackson again for joining us to chat about just how devastating climate crisis is for all of our communities. Now, climate change is making these extreme weather events like heat waves, droughts, and wildfires that we've talked about a lot more dangerous in Nevada. And we're feeling those effects of climate change, and we need the strong investments to help mitigate these effects before it can get any worse. Now, fortunately, our state has taken action on climate, like Reverend Jackson had stated, that we've established some strong climate goals to get to net zero emissions by the year 2050 and 100% clean energy by the year 2050. Now, this year, our state legislature also passed a major clean energy bill, SB 448, to strengthen our grid reliability and create more electric vehicles charging stations, and even make sure 40% of funding goes to those low income and low wealth communities. Now, any federal investments in a climate resilient and renewable energy future would just add to the critical funding already underway in Nevada and help us get to further heights to achieve a healthy climate future. Right now, as Congress negotiates this major bill to help rebuild our communities, climate and clean energy investments need to be prioritized. But don't just take that message from me, take it from the 83% of voters who actually are concerned that future generations will be more impacted by extreme weather events in their lifetimes compared to today. Or from the 77% of Nevadans who agree and favor the historic investments in climate and clean energy that President Biden had promised. Now, today, Nevadans are calling, again, on U.S. Senators Catherine Cortez Masto and Jackie Rosen, along with Congressman Stephen Horsford, to support the Build Back Better budget and make those bold investments to tackle the threats posed by the climate crisis. Time is running out, and Nevadans need our elected officials to act now on climate, clean energy, jobs, and justice.